Hey everyone, welcome to our daily sketching routine. Today is Tuesday, August the 6th, and the topic is sketching snowy mountains. And the supplies I'll be using, which you can find something similar if you'd like, is a mechanical pencil, a thin pen, and a thicker pen, and also a straight edge. So let's get started. In the video with the world map, which I posted a few weeks ago, this is the northern snow mountain area. So if you don't have a triangle, they're pretty useful. For these corners. But yeah, create a border, and I'm gonna go with something rectangular for the thumbnail, but it can be square or tall. It'll still work because we're gonna go over several things, and I wanted to do a landscape because just to take a break from drawing figures, and also it's relaxing, and I'm not an expert at it, so I'll learn something. Well, you always learn something when you're sketching. Alright, so yeah, you've got your window. Well, let's begin. We're gonna have a foreground, a middle ground, and a background, and then the sky. So with your pencil, draw in a foreground. And it shouldn't be perfectly straight, but kind of straight. It can have a little bit of a slope to it. So that'll be the foreground. And then for the middle ground, it'll be, we're gonna show the concept of overlap. So you can taper or slope more than the foreground, but not necessarily go behind it, although it could, but in this case we'll make it a little bit more gradual. You could have another one that's a little bit closer, so notice the distance here and then here. So make it a little bit closer. And this one you can make it go behind there. And that's still the middle ground there. And then go like that. And again, sort of vary right here, since the ground isn't perfectly even. And then these overlaps will create our depth. And it already starts to look like a landscape. So that'll be the middle ground here. You can even have like a little bit thinner, like that. Then for the background will be the mountains. So you want to think about the basic composition. So let's pretend that, so if this is the middle, then this would be the thirds. And so instead of putting it right in the middle, we'll move it off in the third. So we'll do we'll say that's like the highest peak. Just kind of let your hand come up with a shape here, and then have it disappear behind this. Get that overlap. And same thing on this side. But then you may want it to like not overlap and disappear over there. So next, we'll suggest some clouds. And we're gonna see a little bit underneath the cloud, because this is the mountain here, the background. The base of the mountain is kind of like the horizon line. And then you could have the cloud go behind it to add more depth. And sketch in cloud looking shapes, and you can have some of it go off of the border, beyond the border there. The main thing is not to make it look too of the same size, not realistic. And that's just to suggest this main cloud here. So that's a pretty good composition, and you can already see the landscape. And then the next thing would be, we'll talk about when we start doing pen and ink. It's good to have an idea of what we're gonna do. Yeah, we're not done diagramming here. So in this foreground, well, let's do the middle ground. In this area, we're gonna draw pine trees, and so just kind of indicate some distinct triangle shapes for the pine trees, but then the rest will just crosshatch. But these would sort of stand out. And the further ones, you might want them to be smaller and then be behind this line right here to suggest distance. Just have a few that are bigger and smaller. Okay, we're going to cross hatch a lot of this. And again, just a little bit. And then there's going to be some trees over here, but they're going to be so far in the distance that we're just going to show small hatching lines. And this is as a just to set up the give us some guidelines for when we ink it. In the foreground, we'll put bigger trees, and then it's kind of good to like create the base of it. And since it's snow that's covering the base of the tree, and I just draw a bigger triangle here. And again, smaller circle. And the triangle can be kind of different shapes. Now these foreground trees can overlap these other the middle ground, and it helps to show depth, the illusion of depth. And then there can be one that's real close, and this will be you won't even see the bottom of it. And then we'll throw a tree right here. And yeah, they don't need to all, it's all about composition. That's what this is. So like this one is going to cross all those lines there. And this one kind of, this one a little bit. I just have one more that like doesn't really do that. We'll just keep it at that for the purposes of this demo. So that's about 5 minutes, I think. I'm going to start another 5-minute timer for those that like that, such as myself, and to know how long these videos are. Draw a center line, because that'll be helpful. And these pine trees here. Alright, so the next thing would be the mountain here. We're not gonna do too much because it's like further out. We're gonna say that this is has more definition. So this is the highest peak. So pick like kind of the ridge of the mountain and create dimension that way. Try to get the big shape first, and then you'll get kind of something like that. We'll play around with it. Alright. So yeah, feel free to pause the video to get a drawing kind of like this. You don't have to make it look just like this. If you're new or beginner, you might want to copy this or just use the principles of foreground, middle ground, background, and then like a sky in the back. So next we're going to use a thin pen to start to sketch out, and I would keep things loose, and to do that, just don't hold the pen too tightly, too close to the tip. Just keep the wrist loose. So what I would do is just start on these pine trees, and using that center line as a guide, draw some lines following the triangle shape, and realizing that one, they'll have snow, so these bottom parts, leaves are wider, so they tend to sag a bit more and then start to go upwards. The main thing is to keep that triangular shape. And right now, just focus on the kind of the outline of it, not so much the shading. And keep it loose. Keep it loose. Yeah, overlap on these trees are good too. So like this, again, shows depth. It's not the most realistic landscape. It's from imagination, which I really like. I prefer, although I've done studies, so there's nothing wrong with that. So on this one, I just have it sort of be a little bit more detailed, and keep in mind that the leaves, they're coming towards us, so keep the stroke sort of different lengths, because some of it is facing the camera or the viewer. And then for the foreground, you might want to just use this thin pen and sort of ink in this line right here. And again, keeping in mind this is snow. So that's your foreground. But then maybe for anything beyond that, you may not want to just outline it. Next, you might want to think about the sun. So I'm going to have it coming sort of from the left to the right on this mountain here. So for these further out trees, I would just sort of put in the shadow side of these further pine trees, and keep it loose because they're going to grow pretty naturally. Out here, just use the thin pen to make dash marks for this outline. We're probably not going to outline this at all. For the mountain here, I would focus on the shadow side and just keep it, don't outline the whole thing. There's going to be a lot of snow, and there's going to be a lot of like fogginess or atmosphere. Same with the clouds. I wouldn't ink that. just yet. If there is some line work, it's going to be on the side, the shadow side of it. And of course, since it is snowy, we always want a lot of the white of the paper. That's going to be the snow. All right. Apparently the alarm went off, but I didn't hear it. Maybe the ringer was off. So I'll start another 5-minute timer. So it's been about 10 minutes, I think. So next, we're going to get a thicker pen and start to do these. So to do that, we're going to, well, the light is coming from left to right, but in this foreground, it's not exactly like that. It's most of these are going to be in shadow, like facing us. So what I would do is just start to put hash marks for the inks and kind of gravitate towards this center line here, because again, the leaves are, some of them are facing us, which is going to be dark. Again, still keeping it loose. This might be a longer video, but that's okay. But I find that this is relaxing. I don't have to think about drawing people. Happy little trees. Good old Bob Ross. Now I will start to do some videos with color and everything. It's just, I love to draw, so I can draw all the time. As far as like the base of the tree, it's good to, again, alternate. Like this one could go this way, that one could add a little bit of a shadow. So yeah, hopefully you're keeping your sketchbook, keeping your daily sketching habit, even if it's for 5 minutes, which is why I set the 5-minute timer. Sketching along. I'll be here as long as you're here. And I tend to forget, but thank you for liking, commenting, watching, subscribing. Really appreciate it. That's a little baby tree. Yeah, let's do this one here. So I would start off the same, but we'll add a little bit more detail and adjust the direction of the stroke the way I am here to get a looser look. probably won't edit this. I'm just gonna record it in real time. Sometimes I prefer to do it that way. So now, start to put in a little bit more detail to these leaves, have them look a little bit more like individual leaves. And the darker they are in the middle here, the more it suggests the leaves that are coming towards us. Again, use pretty loose grip. But keep the shadows kind of gravitating towards the center of it, because one, it's facing away from the light. Also, do your best to maintain that triangular shape. And then the leaves also taper. So in this foreground tree, we'll start to do some cross hatching. Again, having it be pretty dark in the center here. Something like that. It's better not to overwork it. Less is more. Alright, so that's the foreground. And I'm assuming 5 minutes is up, which it is. I'll start another one. I don't know why the alarm's not going off. Could be the sleep mode, because it's pretty early. I couldn't sleep. So yeah, let's work on the middle ground. And so for that, get the thinner pen and so a few things to keep in mind. One is we want to differentiate it from the foreground. So we're going to use some crosshatch technique, but also at the same time not to overdo it because it is snow. So yeah, let's do our best. So what I'm going to do is just kind of hatch it in one direction. And it's going to be on the shadow side of these trees, and then just vary the hash marks because we're saying that there's a lot of, it's like a forest, there's a lot of little trees, but don't overdo it. Because we want to keep the snowy look. Oh, it scared me. And then this line here, if you have like a border, I'll just hash it. I wouldn't draw in the outline. Kind of like that. And then to go in like the other direction, not too much, to indicate the the individual trees. Again, not too much because there's a lot of atmosphere going on and snow, and it's further out. So something like that. And for this, you definitely don't want to crosshatch because then it changes the value of it to match this. So you want this to look further out. So I would just use hash marks. And smaller hash marks. All right. The next part will be the mountain here. And to begin with, on the shadow side, just start to hatch in the shadow. Keep it loose and also don't overwork it because you can't really fix it too well if you overdo it. So like, for example, for this part, I wouldn't, you can do that, but I'd leave that. And then for the clouds here, you don't want to draw the clouds. Well, you heard that one. That's weird. That's another 5 minutes. Let's start another one. Yeah, for the clouds, I would, to show the underside of the clouds, I kind of have to move the paper here. Again, to get straighter lines, you want to go this way and not this way. So, yeah, have it go behind the peak a little here. And have it be like have a gradation. So the lines will be closer and then a bit further out. And then to get the outline of these clouds, you want to just use hash marks instead of outlining them to make them look further. And more fluffy. Okay. So that's not too bad actually. But we'll work on this mountain a little bit because it's kind of the focal point. What I would do is start to, again, don't overdo it. It's always better to, because there is supposed to be atmosphere, crosshatch some areas probably wherever the ridge is sharply defined. So start to bring out some of that. Not too bad. Now hopefully you're following along and then you're not feeling the need to run to look for reference. So notice that you can achieve different values just by how close the lines are. So you can do it that way, and also keep in mind the distance of it. And step back and look at it, and then a little goes a long way. Also keep in mind how the snow would accumulate on this mountain. But after this round, this 5 minutes is over, once you get this far, where you pretty much invented all of this, then yeah, go look up reference if you want, but I want you to be able to, and myself, I'm speaking for myself when I say you or we, if we had to, we could take this to like detail it and have it look convincing enough. But what I find is, if you do it this way, see, I really wouldn't outline very much on this because it would break the illusion of depth. I wouldn't hard line any of these. But what was I saying? Yeah, but now if you look at reference, it'll just make your picture look more realistic, but it won't look like the reference. And that's one of the main things about my approach, is imagination and creativity. Whereas when you're using too much reference, it's really about, it's good to build your skill, but it's not that creative, in my opinion. So part of the hashing here can also start to represent some of the clouds that are at the foot of the mountain, but like don't outline it, because that can exist here too. You can have some clouds like this. Suggesting clouds. But yeah, I would look up reference and add little details, but not messing up your composition. And hopefully that helped you out. And thanks for watching, and until next time, keep on sketching.